Jay Summers, Morning Blend. We've had some great webinars, Zoom discussions, and interviews with the International Institute St. Louis, and they're doing a webinar series on inclusion in the St. Louis, bringing cultures and inspiring action. And today, I have the CEO, Arrey with International Institute, and we're going to talk a little bit about the webinar series, which I've really enjoyed the series. Arrey, let's talk about that. How's it going?
I think it's going very, very well. We started out this conversation about, we started out by talking about the opportunities that immigrants bring coming into St. Louis, and then went on to talk about how the practice of diversity, equity, and inclusion can lead to building a more inclusive society. The last two have been great in terms of the conversations that we are having, and I think the opportunity that this conversation presents are numerous, because it helps us talk about the uncomfortable, and the uncomfortable is usually where we can make a difference.
Why this particular webinar series, and why now?
Yeah. Well, I just started out at the International Institute, and the first thing I realized about the International Institute is that many people see the Institute as serving refugees and immigrants. But the question to ask is why? Why is the Institute serving immigrants and refugees? Now, the answer to that question is really that over the years, it's been 100 years that the Institute has been doing this. Every time you have an influx of refugees or immigrants, it usually creates friction within communities in which they settle. So our job is not just welcoming them and creating a path for them to move forward. Our job is working with the community to ensure that they embrace these immigrants who come here and see these immigrants as part of this society, so that they too can contribute to the building of society, and not just see them as a burden to society. So rather than just providing assistance to immigrants and refugees and their families, it's about inclusion. It's about, our work is about building an inclusive society where everybody has an opportunity to make their fair contribution to the development of society. That's why we're having this conversation, so people can look beyond the labels of immigrants and refugees to see these people as our neighbors, as entrepreneurs that are contributing to the development of our society, as citizens in this community who are, paying their taxes and doing their fair share in contributing to our great cultural experience that they bring as well.
Now, what are you looking forward to in the webinar series, and what do you would like for the audience to take away from these series?
Well, the first thing that I would love for the audience to remember this: inclusion and St. Louis. I cannot say this so often, that for us to have a society that is thriving, we have to have a society that is inclusive. And for us to have an inclusive society, we have to be deliberate in working towards inclusion. These conversations, repeating inclusion St. Louis, we hope that this registers in the minds of our audience, and that as they begin to walk down the street, they think about inclusion. As they create opportunities for employment, they think about inclusion. As they do business, they think about inclusion. And that it has to become our way of life if we have to develop a thriving community.
Arrey Oberson, thank you so much for joining us on Morning Blend and talking about your webinar series. Again, for a viewing audience, when and how can they be a part of this webinar series?
The webinar series is run, we are doing it every Monday We started out on August 19, and we're going to run this up to August 23rd. And it's run every Monday at 11 a.m. and it's run on Zoom, on Facebook, and on our YouTube page. So if you find the International Institute on Facebook or on YouTube, you can catch us live. Otherwise, you can also visit our website, register for the Zoom conversation, and join us on Monday mornings. And we're doing this as part of our overall Festival of Nations activities. And we'll see how it goes at the end of August. Maybe if there's popular demand, we're going to keep the conversation going.
So definitely. Now, just before we get off the air, let's talk a little about what the Festival of Nations is and when it's going to be.
The Festival of Nations has been run in this community since 2001. And the Festival of Nations is being run this year by the International Institute under the theme, Bridging Cultures, Inspiring Action. The final weekend, we're running several activities in the lead up to the Festival of Nations, including our Inclusion St. Louis, several other activities, pop-up dinners, last Friday of the month concerts, and some takeaway activities for children that they can do at home with their parents. But the festival itself will be on Saturday, the 28th, at currently Tower Grove Park. That's where it's going to be. And we are going to have people, next week, we're going to open up for people to start registering. It's going to be free to the public. It's going to be different cultures on display there. We're curating a huge performance of different cultural groups that we hope to create a kind of get together where all these groups perform separately, but then in the end perform together to really demonstrate how inclusive our community is.
Arrey, you sound so convincing on it. Definitely. Thank you again.
But we can't do this alone. I can't say this enough.
Right.
We can only do this with the community behind us. So I invite the St. Louis community to stand with us on this one.
And I'll definitely be there too. Arrey, thank you again for joining us on Morning Blend.
It's a pleasure.